Skynet, the iconic AI that nuked the world and enslaved humanity in Terminator. It's probably the ultimate sci-fi nightmare. But what if I told you the most influential people on the planet are actively building a system that have some stark comparisons to Skynet? This segment here is based on an article called Cities Without Limits by Iain Davis. Now, I'm not going to use this segment to cover every concept, so read the article if you have time, and it's most definitely worth the read. Now, Ian's article points out that this looming threat has been renamed and rebranded, and we've heard whispers of this concept with the idea of quote-unquote 15-minute cities, and nowadays Trump is trying out this new name called freedom cities. Now, throughout this segment, we'll be referring to this concept as city-states. Probably some of the most alarming features. I think there's plenty to go around, but one feature is the idea of replacing citizenship with a digital ID. Now, in terms of what that means is that you don't really quote-unquote exist without a digital ID. The other concept here is being operated and run and dictated by a quote-unquote CEO. This is a concept that one of the quote-unquote thought leaders will say, Curtis Yarvin, who is really behind, who is really admired by a lot of these tech oligarchs like Peter Thiel, and Marc Andreessen particularly mentioned them out loud. And I've noticed a pattern while doing this, while researching and really looking into the various concepts. And I think that I've noticed a pattern that could provide a more powerful understanding of really the term globalist. And with this idea, I think we could more accurately understand them as people who actively strategize how to increase the power that money affords them over the world and the people inside it. The people behind this concept, like Yarvin, Thiel, and Andreessen.
You would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
Yes?
I don't know. I would.
This is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
The people behind this concept are globalist. And we'll talk about the rebranding that they've done for themselves. But the primary goal here is to translate the money of these people, these oligarchs, into an actual physical kingdom of their own. And this is, of course, if everything works out in their favor. But what are their tools? According to Ian, they come in the form of AI, crypto, and highly advanced weaponry. These cities are technologically advanced, right? And when I say technologically advanced, I mean they are controlled by computers in various ways. This gets very, very dark very fast when you realize just what these people want to do, as hinted by the idea of highly advanced weaponry. They are far beyond the actual physical structure that would contain people, or even the cameras that would really enact total surveillance on people. they want orbital weapons, right? So with positional superiority over anything that we have on Earth, they want these weapons to be controlled by an artificial intelligence. And this is very interesting here, and we'll get into this concept in a second in terms of how AI essentially is being treated as a god by many of these people. And with AI, the idea is that algorithms will essentially control people and socially engineer them to act quote-unquote better. Now, who defines quote-unquote better is something that particularly Curtis Yarvin has dismissively stated that he doesn't quite know or really care, which is interesting. Now, and also when it comes down to their version of crypto, it's not about freedom for them. It's actually the opposite. It's with crypto, it's the freedom. It really hinges on the idea of a permissionless ledger. You can look up that particular term, but the idea here is that they are looking for a permissioned ledger, right? Not stated. They kind of dance around the topic while kind of stating and really just advertising ideologies that very much suggest that they are going for permissioned crypto, and even denouncing permissionless ledgers. But here they are very much attached to the idea of controlling the ledger, which completely undermines the libertarian ideology behind crypto. With all this in mind and being dreamed of as if it's a kind of as if they're living a sci-fi novel, these guys are really championing themselves as accelerationists. And it's disturbing because Stephen Hawking in particular was hopeful about AI's potential, with a huge disclaimer that it had to be strictly regulated. Otherwise, it could lead to the worst disaster in human history. Now, the idea of pairing AI with some kind of orbital weaponry seems like a great way to make that disaster a reality. This idea and this topic, it really does remind me of the age of nuclear energy. When we entered the age of nuclear energy, we had people claiming that nuclear energy would make all other forms of energy completely inert. This led to us making some very bold decisions that were very costly in terms of the lives and the homes that were lost in this particular race. And just to be open here, it wasn't just the United States in this race, it was also Russia. And that was, of course, hinting at the idea of Chernobyl here. These guys are ignoring some very serious warnings from people who are who I would respect more in terms of their competence and intelligence in terms of regulating anything. Iain teases that this is going to be a part of his reporting in the future, in terms of in this particular series, possibly part 2, that these people really want to move fast and break society in order to get people desperate enough to adopt their particular ideologies when they don't have any other option. A lot of you may remember the idea of Skynet, after it killed 3 billion people, was that it enslaved, or it was attempting to enslave, the rest of humanity. This is really disturbing in terms of how things are going now, and in terms of how things can go when it comes to the end of a civilization or a catastrophic event that could end society. This particular ideology around the end of civilization or the end of society really reminds me of an article particularly around it was something called the Dragon King event, and I also have a video on that, so I welcome you to check that out in terms of all the concepts and ideologies here. But the Dragon King event really discusses the options and the possible scenarios for how a society ends and reforms. Now, a key point here is that a predefined plan that can provide the basic necessities of human life are more likely to succeed in an environment filled with desperate people. And this right here, I want this to be the takeaway. Let's say that world ends tomorrow, or the world ends before I cover Ian's part 2. The best defense against a centrally planned dystopia is a strong, decentralized community. We, as the people, need to be the ones to form this start to really construct and engineer this predefined plan for how society would look in terms of a catastrophic event or civilization-ending event. We should be the ones forming stronger local communities, creating think tanks, starting to construct this infrastructure and systems, something like mutual aid, local production, and also the communication networks. And these things should prove useful, or should be really be thought of in the ideology that they will become useful in the event that society around us fails. We need to start thinking about how we can uphold and maintain a civilized society. And I'd rather this new system be built from the bottom up rather than from the top down. When it comes down to what we're looking at today, this is going to be the conclusion of this particular segment. But there is going to be a part 2 coming soon, and Ian put some teasers in the current article, so I'm really looking forward to reading that as well. And I highly recommend Ian's article. He goes over a lot more than what we talked about here, and it does give you insight, and that insight could definitely help you understand when you're looking at and when you're being sold a red flag, like the idea and the concept of quote-unquote freedom cities. You need to understand what's happening and really where these people are trying to go with a lot of these concepts. Like the video if you like the idea of the system. Comment if you have insight, advice, or you just want to disagree. Tell me how Peter Thiel is really just the most chill guy. In any case, good luck.